There is a kind of power that no government can take from you. No failure can diminish, no betrayal can break, and no storm can shake. It is not found in titles or riches, applause or admiration. It is not granted by society nor earned through status. This power is buried within you perhaps, but never gone. It waits quietly behind your habits, your reactions, your thoughts ready to rise. The moment you remember it exists. The Stoics called it the ruling reason, the directing mind. It is your ability to choose how you respond to life. It is the steady hand in chaos, the unwavering center in turbulence, and from that choice flows your freedom, your resilience, your courage, and your clarity. You see, this power does not shout. It whispers in moments of stillness. It waits in every decision. It stands behind every action, asking only one thing: will you use me? Because to use this power is to stop outsourcing your strength. It is to reclaim the authority you've unknowingly given to fear, to doubt, to impulse, and to external noise. The Stoics were not superheroes. They were human beings who practiced remembering their strength every single day. They knew that real power is not what you wield over others, but what you master within in a world obsessed with control. The Stoics offered a revolutionary path: self-control. In a culture hungry for attention, they pointed us inward to the place that does not need approval to feel whole. They understood centuries before science confirmed it, that the most powerful force in your life is not your environment, but your mindset. It's not what happens to you, but what you do with it. You have unlimited power, not because you can control everything, but because you can control the most important thing: yourself, your focus, your effort, your values, your voice. That is where your strength lies. This lecture is not just theory. It is a mirror, a call to awaken the power that you have always possessed, a guide back to your strength, a path to reclaim what you've always had, but may have forgotten to you. The journey is not about becoming something new. It is about becoming who you were before the world taught you to doubt it. Let us begin Chapter 1, the domain of power. The first principle of Stoicism is to draw a line between what is up to us and what is not epic. Hughes, the slave-turned-philosopher, began his Caribbean with this very idea. There are things that are in our control: our thoughts, our actions, our desires, and our aversions, and there are things that are not: the behavior of others, the weather, the past, and the inevitable course of life. To waste your energy on what lies outside your control is not just foolish, it is disempowering. Imagine trying to sail a boat by yelling at the wind, expecting it to change direction because of your volume. That is what most people do when they complain about circumstances, gossip about others, or obsess over outcomes they have no influence over. It feels momentarily satisfying, like a burst of steam escaping from pressure, but it drains energy and offers no return. It's an illusion of action, noise in place of impact. It is movement without momentum. Frustration disguised as control. We scream at traffic. We dwell on someone else's rudeness. We pour our attention into what they said, what they didn't say, what we can't change. We mentally relive conversations, arguments, disappointments, like scratching a wound, hoping it will heal faster. This is how people lose days, months, even years. By misplacing their effort into realms they were never meant to govern. They give their most sacred energy to ghosts of the past and illusions of control. This is the silent surrender of sovereignty, the invisible leak of strength that drains not only power but peace. And while we burn our time reacting to what we cannot fix, we miss the simple truth. Our power has not disappeared. It has only been misdirected. Our clarity has not vanished. It has only been buried under distraction. The world's noise, its chaos, its urgency, it all invites us to forget ourselves. But the Stoic remembers, the Stoic reclaims their attention, as if pulling a sword from a stone. Life constantly throws winds of change, resistance, and unpredictability. Storms arrive unannounced. People disappoint expectations. Shatter plans dissolve. You cannot direct those winds, but you can choose your sail's angle. You can train your hand to steady the rudder, to steer through the gale. With focus, you can adjust your course with calm and precision. That is what the Stoic does. The Stoic doesn't curse the storm. They use it to navigate more wisely. They take it as information, not condemnation. They do not personalize misfortune. They interpret it. Every gust of wind becomes instruction. Every unexpected current becomes an opportunity to develop presence, patience, and adaptability. what others see as resistance. The Stoic sees as refinement what others resist. The Stoic integrates. The Stoic sees the wind and sets the sail. They do not beg for calmer seas. They do not ask the world to be different. They ask themselves, what strength can I build here? They look for virtue, not validation. They seek to understand their place in nature, not to oppose it, but to operate in harmony with it. This alignment is not passive. It is the fiercest form of freedom. The Stoic is not disempowered by challenge, but sharpened by it. They do not collapse under stress, they crystallize. They become clearer, tougher, more precise. The chaos outside is met by the clarity within. They turn inward toward the only place their power truly resides. This is the beginning of unlimited power, refusing to give it away no matter the situation. Every time you get angry at something beyond your reach, you have surrendered your strength to chaos. Every time you try to manipulate someone else, you are abandoning the one person you are called to lead yourself. To try to rule the world without ruling yourself is to build a castle on sand, majestic for a moment, but doomed to dissolve. It may look grand from the outside, but it lacks foundation. Your domain is your own soul, your thoughts, your reactions, your decisions. These are the levers of your power. This is the seat of your empire, and it is a kingdom that expands. The more you govern it, the more aware you become of your thoughts, the more deliberate your actions become. The more intentional your response is, the stronger your grip on the reins of your life. Fortify it with discipline, rule over it with wisdom. Guard it with intention. Anchor yourself in the center of your own sovereignty. Cultivate presence like a garden. Maintain focus like a fortress, because that is the one realm in which you are already a king. And when you learn to lead yourself with honor, the world may shake, but your power will remain. It'll not just survive. It'll shine brighter amid the storm. And in that glow, others will find their way, not because you controlled them, but because you mastered yourself. Power is not dominance. Power is direction. And when your direction is inward, it will eventually ripple outward. Chapter 2, Perception is Power. Marcus Aurelius once wrote, "If you are pained by an external thing, it is not this thing that disturbs you, but your judgment about it, and it is in your power to wipe out that judgment." Now, what a revolutionary thought! You are not disturbed by the world itself, but by your interpretation of it. The power is not in the event, but in your response that means that pain. Fear, shame, and frustration are not automatic. They are optional. They are outcomes of perception. This doesn't mean you should suppress emotion or lie to yourself. It means you should challenge the narratives you've been handed. Every emotion carries a story beneath it, and often that story has gone unquestioned for years. When someone insults you, do you immediately assume they've wounded your worth, or do you pause to consider the possibility that their words reveal more about their pain than your value? What lens are you looking through? One you chose or one you inherited? And if it was inherited, can you examine its cracks, challenge its assumptions, and maybe discard it for something more empowering? The Stoics knew that a wise person refrains before they react. They examine the lens before they judge the scene. Perception is a filter, and you get to choose which one you look through. Train yourself to look for what you control, to expect hardship, to appreciate resistance, to separate fact from interpretation. Begin asking, what story am I telling myself? Is it rooted in truth or just habit? Is it helpful or is it sabotaging my peace? You are not obligated to believe everything you think, especially the thought, shaped by fear, pride, or pain. Perception is a mental stance, not a fixed trait. You can cultivate it, you can tilt it toward wisdom, you can condition it the way you condition a muscle. Through repetition, through intention, through practice, learning to challenge your perception is learning to reclaim your mind. It is learning to create space between stimulus and response, between emotion and reaction. It is the moment you decide to be led by values, not by moods. It is refusing to let temporary emotion rewrite the script of your identity. You do not become what you feel. You become what you consistently choose to believe. Perception is not passive. It is an active engagement with reality. Each day you are given countless chances to interpret events, and each interpretation becomes a building block of your worldview. These building blocks form your mental architecture, your sense of self, your attitude toward life, your inner atmosphere. Train yourself not only to see what is happening, but to ask why you see it the way you do. Ask what assumptions you are carrying. Ask what you gain by clinging to certain beliefs. Ask what would happen if you let go. In doing this, you do not erase reality. You reshape your relationship to it. You begin to engage with the world through a lens you've consciously chosen, not one that was unconsciously adopted. You learn to see clearly, not comfortably. Comfort often lies in illusion, in pretending that life should be different, that others should conform to our will, that struggle is unfair. But clarity sees what is and accepts it without surrendering to it. Clarity is courage dressed in awareness. You take back authorship of the story being written in your mind. You stop living in narratives that were handed to you and start composing your own narratives that reflect your values, your principles. Your truth. You begin to edit the internal dialogue that once echoed with self-doubt and fear, replacing it with a tone of conviction, resilience, and reason. You are not just the reader of your mind's story. You are its author, its editor, and its publisher, and that is the beginning of peace, the kind that can't be stolen. Because it was created within, this peace is not dependent on the opinions of others, the stability of circumstances, or the approval of the world. It is built on a foundation of truth, self-awareness, and disciplined thought. It does not crumble in the face of hardship because it was forged in the fire of adversity. It is the peace of someone who has chosen to lead their own mind. The kind of peace that is rooted in truth, not fantasy, the kind that doesn't require silence in the world, because it has cultivated silence within, the kind that allows you to walk through chaos without becoming chaotic. The kind that grows stronger the more you nourish it with reason and courage, because like a muscle, peace strengthens with deliberate practice, with chosen perception, with the unwavering decision to remain grounded no matter the storm. Chapter 3: Obstacles into Opportunity. If you have been following the principles of Stoicism, you have definitely heard this quote: "The impediment to action advances action. What stands in the way becomes the way." Marcus Aurelius wrote this not as a metaphor, but as a strategy, a mental blueprint, a daily reminder that life's challenges are not barriers to avoid, but tools to use. Stoicism does not deny difficulty, it redefines it. Difficulty is not a dead end, it is raw material to the Stoic. Hardship is not a detour, it is the path. Disappointment is not a sign of failure, but an invitation to grow. The obstacle is the catalyst. Setback is a summons to character. Life does not test you to break you, but to reveal you, to call you forward, to confront the limits you didn't know you needed to outgrow. You are not the victim of your struggles, you are the product of how you respond to them, and each response becomes a step in your own becoming. Each decision you make under pressure is a declaration of who you are. Each time you rise, you write a new definition of strength. You learn not to avoid resistance, but to rise through it. The Stoic sees obstacles as sacred training grounds. Each delay, each betrayal, each moment of frustration becomes a classroom for virtue, a chance to rehearse strength, to put theory into motion, to make the abstract concrete. Every hardship you face is a weight. You can let it crush you, or you can use it to grow stronger. You can collapse under it, or you can rise by pushing against it. Just as muscle is built through tension, the soul is fortified through strain. What looks like burden is actually blueprint. What feels like pressure is often potential in disguise. Every challenge is a chance to practice the virtues: courage, temperance, justice, wisdom. These are not abstract ideas. They are forged in trial. They are proven in discomfort. They are revealed only when you are forced to choose them over easier paths. Without adversity, there is no strength. Without pressure, there is no clarity. Without resistance, there is no reason to awaken the deeper layers of who you are meant to become. And once awakened, they do not forget, they do not return to sleep. They become your compass. Obstacles are not interruptions. They are part of the curriculum of life. They are not detours off the path. They are the path. Each difficulty, each resistance, each unplanned detour is a masterclass in growth and grit. To struggle well is to live well. Not to merely survive adversity, but to be shaped by it into something more capable, more composed, more powerful than you were before. Every challenge, no matter how unwanted, becomes a sacred forge for the soul. The Stoic does not ask for an easier life. They ask for a stronger will. They ask for resilience instead of ease, wisdom instead of certainty, strength instead of shelter. They ask for a mind that stays steady, a spirit that stays upright, a posture that does not collapse under pressure, but straightens in its presence. They do not wish away problems because they understand problems are not proof of misfortune. They are invitations to greatness. They step into them with resolve, not because they enjoy the struggle, but because they understand what the struggle reveals. The Stoic knows their true power is not in what happens, but in what they become because of it. The storm does not make them shrink, it sharpens their sight. It clarifies their values. It burns away pretense and forces the truth to rise. They welcome the test not for pain's sake, but for the transformation it makes possible. They know that comfort rarely creates character, but adversity always does when met with the right mindset, because in that transformation lies freedom. Freedom from the illusion of control, freedom from the dependency on outcomes, freedom from weakness, disguised as ease. In that growth lies the proof that the obstacle was not there to stop you. It was placed to prepare you. It was not punishment. It was passage, a rite of evolution. The moment where the old self was tested and the new self was born, the fire you walked through didn't scar you. It refined you. You do not rise in spite of the hardship. You rise because of it. That is the Stoic promise. That is your power, and no one can take that from you. Chapter 4: The Discipline of Choice. Power is not in intensity, it is in consistency. It is not in dramatic acts, but in disciplined habits. True power does not arrive with fireworks or applause. It arrives silently in the form of steady decisions. The Stoics were not warriors of impulse. They were soldiers of self-mastery. They knew that the strongest muscle is the will, and the will must be trained daily, like a flame that must be guarded against wind and time without daily reinforcement. Even the most powerful intentions fade. This training begins with choice, not grand choices, but small ones. Do you choose to wake up when the alarm rings? Do you wake up early, even on the weekends when nobody would blame you for sleeping in? Do you choose silence over gossip, truth over convenience, patience over impulsiveness? Do you choose clarity over chaos, reflection over reactivity? Do you follow through on what you promised yourself when it's no longer convenient, when it's hard, when it's boring, when no one would notice if you quit? These are the hidden battlegrounds of discipline, the quiet tests that determine the loud victories. Power is not found in the moment of crisis. It is built in the ordinary. It is shaped when no one is looking. It is carved into the character by repetition. When you repeat right action, even when no one is watching, you become the kind of person who can stand tall when everything is shaking. You train the habit of stability. You rehearse the posture of strength. The Stoic doesn't just act with purpose once. They act with purpose every day, not just when it's easy, not just when they're inspired, but especially when it's inconvenient, when they're tired, when it would feel good to stop. They act with purpose when no one is watching. When no reward is promised, when the temptation to cut corners whispers seductively, they know that greatness is not built in the bright light of comfort, but in the quiet shadows of persistence. Seneca wrote, "Most powerful is he who has himself in his own power." That means the true Stoic is not ruled by hunger, lust, laziness, or ego. They are ruled by reason, not intellectual reason alone, but embodied, tested, rehearsed. Reason. Reason that is chosen over and over until it becomes instinct, and reason is practiced, not presumed. It must be rehearsed in the quiet hours, in the face of temptation, in the choices that seem small, but shape your soul when everyone else is chasing ease. The Stoic seeks alignment. They've trained the inner voice to speak with clarity, not chaos. They've trained it to anchor them, to calm the storm before the world even knows one is coming. They've built the mental reflex to choose what is right over what is easy, not once, but repeatedly, until their inner compass points automatically toward virtue. Their strength isn't accidental, it's methodical. It's built brick by brick, decision by decision, day by day. Discipline is your declaration of sovereignty. It is the act of planting a flag in the soil of your life and saying, "I am responsible. I own this. I steer this. I do not outsource my outcomes to chance or complaint." It is not always glamorous, but it is always powerful. Every act of discipline is an act of war against the chaos of mediocrity. Every time you say no to distraction, you say yes to your power. Every time you act with intention, you strengthen your kingdom. You do not drift. You direct, you do not react. You respond. You are not driven. You decide. You become the governor of your own time, the protector of your own peace, the builder of your own strength. You become unshakable, not by chance, but by choice. You construct the pillars of your identity through repetition, through awareness, through effort, and over time, those choices solidify into strength. That strength becomes your foundation. That foundation becomes your freedom, and that freedom becomes your legacy. A life built, not by luck, but by leadership of the self. Chapter 5: Silence is strength. In a noisy world, silence is power. In a reactive culture, restraint is power. We are surrounded by people rushing to speak, to shout, to be heard, even if they have nothing to say. But the Stoic understands the energy cost of noise. They understand that speaking less often means thinking more. That silence is not absence, it is presence held with discipline. The Stoic does not need to speak to prove their point, nor retaliate to defend their ego. They have learned the rare art of holding their tongue and guarding their peace. They know that a sharp word may feel like strength, but often it's a sign of inner disarray. When emotions rise, the untrained shout, they lash out without clarity, seeking relief. Through volume, they are swept away by the storm of their impulses. Prisoners of every passing surge, the wise breathe. They inhale composure and exhale reaction. They create space between the impulse and the action. That space is sacred. It is where freedom lives. They feel anger, but they do not become it. They feel insult, but they do not lose dignity to address it. Silence is not weakness. It is strategy. It is control. It is the conscious decision to conserve your strength and not waste it on what does not serve your higher self. The Stoic learns to pause, to observe the urge without obeying it, to choose the moment to delay the reaction until the reason is ready. And when they do speak, it is with precision, with purpose, with power. Their words are not explosions, but instruments. Think of all the damage caused by words spoken in haste. All the bridges burned by mouths moving faster than minds. All the regrets born from a need to be right rather than wise. All the hearts wounded by sharp tongues. Now think of all the strength it takes to remain still when you want to lash out, to say nothing, when every cell is screaming to say everything, to bite your tongue when it feels like justice. But in truth, it would only create more noise that is real power. To be able to respond and yet decide not to know you could destroy, but instead you build to hold fire in your hand and choose not to throw it, to be powerful enough to act, but wise enough to wait. Your energy is sacred. Your peace is your asset. It fuels your focus, your clarity, your creativity. It is the wellspring of your excellence. When protected, it becomes a force multiplier, amplifying your efforts, enhancing your decisions, clarifying your path. Without it, you wander with it. You build with it. You endure storms and remain whole. With it, you don't just survive, you strategize, execute, and lead. You must protect it like royalty. Protects a throne, guarded, intentional, selective, like a sacred flame. It must not be left exposed to the winds of others. Chaos, guarded like a soldier, guards a stronghold, aware, awake, alert. Nothing gets in unless it serves the mission. Nothing stays unless it nourishes your purpose. Not every insult deserves your attention. Not every disagreement deserves your energy. Not every comment is worth your correction. Not every invitation to conflict is worth accepting. Some things must be ignored, not out of weakness, but out of strength. Because when you know what you stand for, you stop chasing distractions. The Stoic commands themselves first, and then, if necessary, the room. And by commanding themselves, they often never have to command anyone else. Their very presence radiates order. They do not need to prove dominance because their self-possession is its own authority. Their restraint speaks louder than their retaliation ever could. Their silence becomes a boundary, a message, a posture of power. It is not absence, it is control. It is not indifference, it is sovereignty. Train yourself to be quiet when it matters most, to listen instead of react, to observe instead of assume, to wait until emotion settles and wisdom speaks, to hold your position like a mountain in a storm, unshaken, unmoved, unwavering. That is not silence, that is supremacy. It is the high ground of character. It is the elegance of restraint. It is the grace of discipline. It is the practice of intentional stillness, the refusal to be pulled into emotional weather, and in that quiet strength, you find something rare, a power no one gave you, and no one can take away, a power you earned. Not through domination, but through mastery. The mastery of self, the kind of mastery that echoes beyond words, the kind that commands not with volume, but with stillness. Chapter 6. Control the inner voice. The most powerful conversations you will ever have are the ones no one hears. They are the silent dialogues between your thoughts and your choices, between fear and courage, between despair and hope, between self-doubt and self-command. The Stoics knew this. Marcus Aurelius wrote in his private journal Meditations as if instructing himself. Why? Because the inner voice is not always your ally. Often it is your first adversary. It is the judge, the critic, the doubtful whisper that questions your every move left untrained. It becomes your captor, but refined it becomes your guide. That voice will tell you you are not good enough, that you can't endure this, that you failed too much to begin again. It'll use the voice of the past to infect your future. It'll pretend to protect you, but really it imprisons you. But who gave it that script? Was it the world or your fear repeating itself? Was it the echo of someone else's doubt disguised as your own? Was it a temporary feeling you mistook for permanent truth? You must teach that voice. Train it like a muscle, guide it like a child, confront it like an adversary, comfort it like a friend, discipline it like a student, and over time lead it like a master. Speak to yourself with clarity, not cruelty, with direction, not despair, with strength, not shame. The Stoic uses reason to interrogate emotion, not to suppress it, but to transform it. They do not silence the voice. They strengthen it. They do not run from it. They reshape it. They tune it like an instrument, refining the tone until it speaks with courage, with discipline, with purpose. They rehearse it daily until its phrases reflect strength, not fear. When panic arises, they ask, is this in my control? When shame appears, they question, is this helping me grow? When fear knocks, they don't pretend it's not there. They simply don't hand it the keys. They invite it to sit, but not to sit. Dear, and over time that inner voice changes. It softens, it strengthens. It becomes more like a mirror and less like a megaphone. It evolves from a critic into a coach, from a saboteur into a source of strength, from an obstacle into a compass, from a storm into a signal. It stops speaking in ultimatums and starts speaking in instructions. It stops punishing and starts guiding. You are not powerless because the voice is loud. You are powerful when you choose not to obey it blindly. When you pause and question, when you reframe instead of recoil, when you direct it instead of letting it dictate, control the inner dialogue, and you control the direction of your life. You control the momentum of your actions and the meaning of your moments, because the story you tell yourself becomes the life you live. It becomes your decisions, your relationships, your destiny. Make sure it's a story worthy of your strength. Make sure it's a story only the strongest version of you would tell. Chapter 7. Live like you are dying. Memento mori. Remember, you must die. It may sound grim, but to the Stoics it was a call to live, not just to exist. Not just to survive, but to live deliberately. Death is not a threat. It is a teacher, a clarifier, a compass. It is the silent advisor in the background of every wise decision, reminding us not to waste what cannot be replaced. Seneca reminded us that life is long if you know how to use it. But how often do we live as if we have infinite time? We procrastinate our dreams, delay our growth, postpone our truth. We get lost in distractions. We say later to everything that matters and yes to everything that doesn't. Why? Because we forget the clock is ticking. We forget that every day wasted is a day gone. Not just gone from our calendar, but from our legacy, from our potential, from our one and only opportunity to do what only we can do. To live with death in mind is not to live in fear. It is to live in focus. It is to shed the non-essentials. When you know your time is finite, you begin to act like it matters. You begin to say no to the noise and yes to the necessary. You start saying no to what drains you, what numbs you, what distracts you. You become honest about what you want, not later, not when things are perfect, but now. You start each day, not out of habit, but with reverence. With presence, with urgency, not anxiety, with gratitude, not regret. Each breath becomes a gift. Each moment becomes a question, is this worthy of my life? The Stoic does not dread death. They use it. They stand beside it like a mentor, not a menace. They use it to sharpen their vision and eliminate distraction, to remember what matters and discard the rest. Death is not the end of power. It is the awakening of it. When you remember you are mortal, you finally start living as if your life has meaning. Not abstract meaning, but tangible moment-by-moment significance. Each decision becomes a sacred act. Each conversation becomes a chapter in your legacy. You stop waiting for the right time and start making now the right time. You stop chasing perfection and start chasing purpose. You eliminate what distracts and nurture what matters because it does. Your life has meaning. Not because someone said it does, but because you decide that it must. You affirm it each time. You choose intention over impulse. Each time you show up with purpose. Instead of drifting with habit, you take ownership of your minutes. You reclaim your hours from triviality, from mindless scrolling, from hollow obligations, from anything that robs you of presence. You don't let your life leak out in small increments of distraction. You guard it, guide it, and give it to what matters. Death is not your enemy. It is your mirror. A mirror that never lies, never flatters, and never forgets. It reflects the questions that matter most. Are you living well? Are you aligned with what you believe? Are you spending your days on what lasts or what fades? It doesn't just show you how short life is. It shows you how wide it can be. How rich, how meaningful, how full. If you treat each moment like a seed of eternity, it doesn't ask for fear. It asks for focus. It asks you to sharpen your attention, to cut through noise, to eliminate the false urgency of things that don't matter. It shows you what is real, what is urgent, and what is worthy of your time. It doesn't shorten your life. It sharpens your focus. It doesn't threaten your power. It calls it forward. It doesn't take meaning away. It demands that you create it. It doesn't invite you to despair. It invites you to decide that every day is not just another day, but another chance to aim higher, love deeper, and live truer. It reminds you that the point of life is not to stretch time, but to deepen it. Not to avoid death, but to make sure that when it comes, it finds you fully alive. Chapter 8: Power in Purpose. The greatest source of resilience is purpose. When you know why you suffer, the how becomes bearable. When you live for something higher than comfort or approval, you become immovable. You stop flinching at pressure. You stop fearing resistance. You begin to treat difficulty not as something to escape, but as something to endure for the sake of something greater. Purpose gives pain a place. It turns hardship into a forge rather than a grave. The Stoics believed in living in accordance with nature, not just the external nature of trees and clouds, but the internal nature of reason, virtue, and duty. They believed that true alignment comes not from changing the world to suit your moods, but from adapting your inner world to remain upright no matter what happens around you. To live well was to live with meaning, clear chosen, deeply held meaning, to follow a moral compass rather than a worldly one. To live in a way that your choices, your speech, and your character remained consistent with your principles, not with your emotions, to seek alignment. Not applause, because applause fades, but alignment lasts. Without purpose, power is scattered, spent on whims, wasted on distractions. It leaks through every crack of indecision. With purpose, power is focused, concentrated like sunlight through a lens. It burns through fear. It silences excuses. It creates momentum where there was once only confusion. It gives you the endurance to carry on and the clarity to know what to carry. What is your why? Is it to become the best version of yourself, to serve something greater than your own? Wants to honor your principles, even when it hurts, to be the person your future self will thank, to live a life so aligned with your values that even setbacks feel sacred? Is it to love without conditions, to build what outlives you, to pass down a legacy of strength, clarity, and courage to those who come after you? Your why doesn't have to be flashy. It just has to be real. Purpose gives suffering a reason. It turns endurance into elevation. It transforms difficulty from punishment into preparation. It reframes every loss as training, every delay as deepening. That is strength, that is unlimited power, not to have ease, but to have endurance. Not to avoid struggle, but to face it for a worthy cause. When your why is strong enough, you can withstand almost any what. Purpose transforms resistance into refinement. It turns obstacles into teachers. It takes the sting out of failure and turns it into feedback. It makes pain productive and progress personal. When you have purpose, you are no longer tossed by the winds of doubt. You are guided by an inner compass. You don't lose your way. You remember why you started. A life without purpose is like a ship without a rudder. It may move, but it will never arrive. It may have motion, but it lacks meaning. It may change direction often, but never move forward. With force, it will drift with the current, vulnerable to every tide. But a life with purpose has direction. It has aim, it has momentum. It may still face storms, but it never loses its course. It sails with conviction. It learns how to course correct, but never surrenders its vision. It doesn't crumble under pressure, it calibrates. Find your purpose, write it, speak it, refine it, protect it. Keep it in front of you. Build it into your schedule, your choices, your code of conduct. Let it shape your habits, inform your priorities, and filter your decisions. Let it guide your relationships and your routines. Let it be the anchor that holds you steady in the chaos and the flame that drives you through the dark. Live it in the quiet moments when no one is watching, because those moments are where your character is built. That's where integrity is forged. Then your power becomes not just internal, but intentional. Not just instinctive, but purposeful. It becomes an instrument of impact, a force for good, a reason to rise again, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard, because purpose doesn't just help you survive the hard. It teaches you how to honor it. Chapter 9. Endure. Transform, transcend. The Stoic path is not one of comfort, but of conquest. Not conquest over others, but over the self, over the false beliefs we've carried since childhood. The impulsive habits born from fear, the self-sabotaging tendencies disguised as protection. The Stoic walks not to escape the world, but to master the world within. They know that external chaos is inevitable, but internal disorder is a choice, and one that can be trained out of us through discipline, reason, and consistent reflection. The Stoic conquers not by dominance, but by detachment from destructive thoughts. They choose clarity over confusion, meaning over distraction, and presence over panic. Endurance is not just survival, it is evolution. It is the slow, steady transformation of pressure into power. It's not about getting through pain, it's about rising from it. Each trial you survive, you do not walk away the same. You walk away reshaped, carved into someone wiser, someone more intentional. You are refined like fire refines metal. Adversity refines the soul. It strips away what is superficial and exposes what is eternal. It burns away the excess, the ego, the illusions, and leaves only what is real. Your discipline, your resolve, your clarity, but only if you allow it. Only if you remain conscious in the pain and refuse to turn away from your own, becoming only if you resist the urge to numb and choose instead to grow. Endurance is not passive. It is not gritting your teeth and bearing it. It is active in engagement with hardship until it teaches you something you couldn't learn any other way. It is staying in the room of difficulty long enough for wisdom to arrive, long enough for transformation to settle in. To suffer without reflection is wasted pain. To struggle without growth is stagnation in disguise. But to endure and ask, what is this shaping in me? What strength is being awakened here? What truth is being revealed? What virtue is being demanded of me now? What part of my character is being forged in this moment? That is Stoicism, that is transformation. It is the art of turning wounds into wisdom and burdens into building blocks. It is seeing every bruise as a reminder of resilience, every scar as a record of survival. It is the recognition that while you may not choose your hardships, you always choose your response to them. And that response is the birthplace of virtue. It is how you become more than you were, not in spite of pain, but because of how you met it, how you stood with it, how you learned from it. The Stoic is not someone who feels nothing. They feel deeply, but they are not ruled by those feelings. They understand that emotion is a messenger, not a master. It speaks, but it does not decide. They rise above it, not by denying it, but by integrating it into their reason, by refining it into clarity. They sit with it. They observe it without judgment. They learn from it. They speak to it with clarity, and then they move through it with courage. They do not silence emotion. They translate it. They carry the lesson, not the weight. They remain unshaken, not because they are immune, but because they have fortified their inner structure. Their peace is earned, not inherited. Their calm is trained, not accidental. Their power is the product of practice. Transcendence is not floating away. It is rising through fear, through grief, through doubt, through the trials that test not just your patience, but your identity. It is choosing to move through the flames and come out as something stronger, wiser, more deliberate. It is facing the fire and letting it strip away everything false and leave behind only the authentic parts of you. It is not detachment from the world, but a deeper connection to the values that anchor you through its chaos. The virtues of courage, discipline, justice, and wisdom. These are not just traits, they are lifelines when the storm arrives. Transcendence is the art of becoming grounded even when everything around you trembles. It is becoming stronger, wiser, and more anchored with each storm. Not because the storms stop coming, but because you stop forgetting who you are. In the middle of them, it is looking chaos in the eye and saying, "You will not define me," and then proving it, not just with your words, but with your endurance. It is meeting the fire and choosing to become light instead of ash. Not by avoiding pain, but by letting it shape you into something that illuminates rather than crumbles. It is choosing to stay soft without breaking and to stay strong without hardening. It is the act of remaining rooted when the winds howl and the ground shakes. That is what it means to become unbreakable. Not that nothing touches you, but that nothing unravels you. Not that storms don't come, but that you no longer drown in them. You learn to breathe through them with patience. You learn to walk through fire without forgetting who you are, what you stand for, and why you began. You remember that every breath taken in the face of resistance is a declaration of power. You recall that every moment survived with grace is a brick in the fortress of your character. Your strength does not come from what you avoid, but from what you've survived and sculpted into self-mastery, from what you felt fully processed, deeply and integrated deliberately. Every scar becomes a symbol, a story, a lesson encoded in your skin. Every setback becomes a step, a moment of stillness that taught you motion. Every fall becomes fuel, burning away what no longer serves and igniting what has been dormant too long. Every hesitation becomes a question answered, a truth uncovered, a doorway to deeper self-knowledge. Every moment becomes proof, not just that you endured, but that you evolved. You are becoming the person adversity tried to stop, but failed to contain, and not just becoming, you already are now, you live it. Chapter 10. Unlimited power is within. You do not need to search the world for your strength. You do not need to wait for a sign or a savior or permission. You already have what you need. You always did. It was not given to you. It was built into you, planted in the foundation of your being, waiting to be uncovered, tested, and awakened by choice. By struggle, by self-awareness, you have reason, you have will. You have the power to choose, to change, to start again, to walk forward. Even when your knees shake, even when fear screams in your ear, you can interrupt the cycle. You can break free from patterns that once held you. You can reframe your past and redirect your future. The Stoics didn't give us the tools, they revealed the ones we had. They reminded us that what we needed was already in our grasp. It only needed to be remembered, refined, and activated. You are not powerless. You are not broken. You are not behind. You are at the beginning of something rare. The path to self-mastery, the beginning, is not weakness. It is potential. It is the moment when awareness turns into intention. It is the moment when you stop waiting for the world to change and start realizing you can change yourself. And through that influence everything around you. Power does not begin with dominance. It begins with decision, with choosing to rise even when nothing around you invites it. Remember, the world can strip you of almost everything, but it cannot take your mind unless you hand it over. It cannot control your choices unless you surrender them, and it cannot destroy your peace unless you allow it. The battle is not out there, it is in here, inside your thoughts, your beliefs, your perceptions. What you guard determines what you grow, what you allow determines what you become. You have agency even in limitation. You have autonomy even in adversity, and you have the ability to reclaim your focus, your voice, and your soul. At any moment you have unlimited power, not to control all outcomes, not to dictate the external world, but to control your soul, to govern your reactions, to craft your perspective, to align your life with principle. This power is the foundation of freedom. From this alignment everything shifts. The outer world does not bend to your will, but your inner world begins to organize itself around clarity, discipline, and truth. And from there everything changes. Your relationships shift from neediness to connection, Your habits shift from impulse to integrity. Your self-respect deepens with every aligned decision. Your future begins to shape itself around who you are becoming, not by accident, but by intention. Because when your soul is anchored, your life cannot drift. When your mind is ruled by reason, your actions follow with precision, focus and strength. This is not theory, it is transformation. The discipline to stay true to your values, even when it hurts. The courage to say no to what once ruled you, the clarity to cut through emotional noise and hear what truly matters. When you live this way, you carry your power with you, not loudly but unmistakably. You don't need to explain it, you embody it. You become the example that others seek. When they feel lost, you become the mirror that reflects what's possible. When someone chooses principle over comfort, you no longer react. You respond. You no longer flinch, you face, you no longer collapse. You rise. Walk with courage. Live with reason. Choose with strength. Speak words that build, not break. Think thoughts that empower, not deplete. Let your presence remind the world that power lives within, not in circumstances, but in how we face them. Let your decisions become declarations of sovereignty. Proof that your life is not ruled by fear, but by principle. Let your calm be contagious, your boundaries be bold, your focus be firm. Let your integrity be unshakable, an anchor not only for yourself, but for those you lead and love. The power is already yours. It has always been. You don't need more. You need less distraction, less hesitation, less doubt. Now act like it, walk like it, speak like it, breathe like it, build like it, and most of all, live like it. Thank you for sticking with us until the end.